Hi, welcome to my YouTube video, Understanding Elliot Rodger. More and more we're hearing people ask, how could he do that? More and more we're experiencing violent killings, mass murders all around the country, and we don't think we know what's causing it, and we don't know what to do about it, but we do know what's causing it, and we're going to talk about it today. But you have to do one thing for me. You have to accept my premise that behavior is learned, that it's based on childhood experiences and parenting, that it's not genes. If you can't accept that premise, I don't think you will enjoy this video or learn anything. So I'm going to start with a tentative diagnosis. We don't know very much about Elliot Rodger, but we have a lot of clues. So I do think he seemed to have Asperger's. I watched the video of him in the car, and I've read a fair amount of his autobiography so far, enough to get a handle on his early childhood. And I think that he was high-functioning Asperger's, and I also think he had reactive attachment disorder, even though he wasn't adopted or anything like that. I think he had a failed attachment. He had a narcissistic personality disorder. He was a little bit of a mafioso in his own home. Some parents surrender to a child becoming bossy, and then they begin to serve the child. So there we had a bit of a problem accruing. But children with RAD lack trust, and so they do become bossy. And bossy does not mean they have high self-esteem. It means they have very, very low self-esteem. They're very insecure. I find that killers across the board had failed attachments. And we can see the lack of connection between Elliot and his parents by his inadequate social skills. He actually believed that if he was going to socialize with somebody, he would basically walk into a room and wait. He thought that everything that he needed was supposed to come to him. That's the way his parents apparently treated him. While they didn't connect with him and offer him empathy and love and affection, attention, regard, and dialogue, they did offer him service. So they bought him things, they made for arrangements for fun events, they tried to entertain him and serve him. They thought that that was good parenting. That's not an off-the-wall thought, given this society and what we believe. If we believe in genetics, then we would think that would be enough, actually. But he was neglected, and the Asperger's type of symptoms, the mechanical approach to people, implies that it began very, very, very young. I'm guessing that he was neglected from the day he was born, in that his mother and father didn't know how to tune in. They probably treated him like a cute little thing, but they didn't see him. They didn't respond to him. They didn't engage him. They didn't dialogue with him from infancy all the way up. That's what it took to become a teenager and young man with no social skills. None. Again, he thought he could walk into a room and attention would come. That's what he learned. And it enraged him that it wasn't working. He didn't know that he was supposed to engage other people, and probably when he was waiting, he probably started to look impatient and growingly angry and despairing. So those are not attractive things to entice people to want to be in a relationship with him. He didn't know how to have a relationship. There's a possibility that his mother maybe, didn't have a very good attachment herself, or maybe she had postpartum depression. She could have been hospitalized when he was an infant, or he could have been hospitalized when he was an infant. He could have ended up rejecting her. If it was a completely broken attachment, he would have rejected her, and then there wouldn't have been an ability to engage him. So we don't know how it came to pass that they didn't engage him for deep dialogue, meaningful dialogue, as in, what's the worst thing that happened to you today? What's the best thing that happened? Oh, somebody didn't treat you well. Well, what happened? How did that go down? What did you do? What did she do? So on and so forth. There just wasn't guidance. Parents are supposed to coach. They're not supposed to serve. Elliot said that childhood was the best years of his life. He couldn't have known about his early attachment failures. And so as long as people were meeting his needs and giving him everything that he wanted, he could have thought very easily that it was the best years of his life. But the lack of intimacy from infancy, the lack of cuddling and holding and adoring, left him starving for love. So there he is in high school, waiting for somebody to come to him, desperately wanting to love and be loved, and they didn't. And as a matter of fact, he probably turned them right off, because another thing that I haven't mentioned is that he thought he had to be arrogant. He thought he had to be cool. He thought he had to be tough. And all of that is a put off too, when there's nothing going on underneath. It wasn't like the romantic stoical guy. He was, who has his shit together, so to speak. He was somebody who looked arrogant but charged. So young women refused him, and that wasn't fair. It wasn't the game plan. It wasn't part of his repertoire of knowledge. And they gave their favors to other men, and that wasn't fair. That enraged him. That wasn't the way it was supposed to go down. Things were supposed to come to him. When he needed, they were supposed to come to him. And he didn't know how to engage. He didn't know. And so he was bottlenecked. There's another compounding factor. So we're talking about a young man or a child who had zero identity. By the way, identity is something you get from the way you're treated. If you get lots of mirroring and you have lots of dialogue and lots of engaged conversation, you get a sense of what you're worth. But if you don't have that exchange, then you become empty. You grow up empty. You don't have any identity. You don't have any resilience. You don't have a feeling that you can matter or whatever. But in this family, they had a legacy. They had a legacy that they were somebodies, that they had at one time been powerful and rich and creative and important. So as Elliot began to suspect, was afraid to say out loud, but as he began to suspect that he didn't have the stuff for greatness, which would not be a genetic problem, it would be a neglect problem, he began to wish that he had money or power, or if only he could demand, like he did with his parents, that he wanted that toy, if only he could demand attention and affection and regard. So somehow the knowledge that his family was significant historically fed into his wish that he could be somebody. So if only he had power and money, it wouldn't matter if he didn't have any skills. It wouldn't matter if he had not much of a personality. He could be so important that somebody would choose him despite his personality or despite his ineptness. So that was his thought process. That's how he thought. And he, along with expecting that he should be treated better and feeling inadequate, and a history of learning to demand things and having those demands met, we had a pretty ugly personality disorder. We had a pretty ugly character. But that's looking at it from the outside. Looking at it from the inside, there was a lot of suffering, and there was a lot of flailing and not getting it, and feeling a sort of mind warp, mixed messages, confusion, anger, outrage. It just wasn't working. He didn't get it. The tirades that he ran were really exactly what he meant. He meant what he said, that if only he could matter, if only people would recognize him. And you know what? A lot of us sometimes have thoughts like that, but his were off the charts. He, those combinations of parenting left him with somebody that was going to become a man who thought that women owed him sex and they owed him love. He was really beginning to develop the characteristics of a rapist, and probably would have become one because he just saw women as someone that he couldn't have, and while others could. And he wanted to make it right, and he couldn't. And he wanted others to make it right, and he couldn't. So now you're looking at the predictor score sheet, and you can see that I scored Elliot's childhood at -76, compounding factors of rejection and isolation. I added another -15 with a total score of -91. We need more information. I would love to have a conversation with Elliot's parents if they wouldn't mind calling me. I want to be really clear that they tried. They parented the best way they knew how. They were good people with poor information and poor skills. They tried to get help, and they also followed the conventional wisdom, which is that babies don't... the information isn't out there of what babies need. We think babies don't need much, but babies need attunement, and they need adoring, and they need to be held and cuddled and all of that, and they need lots and lots and lots of interaction and dialogue, and that information wasn't available to them. That's the fault of my profession, and it's one of the reasons I'm trying to get this information out now. We have an epidemic, and at the tip of the epidemic are the Adam Lanzas and the Elliot Rodgers, let's keep on learning. Let's keep on covering these issues as they come up. For more information about the predictor score sheet, click on the link and maybe pick up my book, The Predictor Scale. And I want to thank you again for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, we'll be discussing other incredible behaviors to come. So I encourage you to subscribe. Thank you.